The mockery begins. The crimson sun of Zarian 7 cast long shadows across the rocky terrain as the exploration shuttle Harmony touched down on the planet's surface. Steam rose from crystalline pools scattered across the landscape, and the air shimmered, with an almost metallic quality that made everything appear slightly distorted. Sarah Chen adjusted her equipment pack and stepped out of the shuttle, her boots crunching on the mineral-rich ground. As the only human on this 12-member exploration team, she had grown accustomed to being the odd one out. The other 11 crew members represented some of the most advanced civilizations in the Galactic Federation, each bringing cutting-edge technology that made her simple Earth-made equipment look primitive by comparison. Atmospheric analysis complete, announced Zixtal, the team's Vorthon scientist. His blue-scaled skin gleamed in the alien sunlight as he operated a device that looked like a floating crystal. The air is breathable, but the water sources show concerning mineral concentrations. Captain Thorne, a tall Altarian with silver skin and multiple arms, gestured toward the steaming pools. Our molecular purifiers should handle any contaminants. This planet's resources could be valuable for the Federation. Sarah quietly unpacked her own water testing kit, a simple collection of chemical strips and tablets that would have been familiar to any Earth camper. The advanced scanners around her hummed and beeped with sophisticated analysis, displaying holographic readouts that danced in the air. "What is that primitive device?" asked Krelon, the team's Xanthari engineer. His insectoid features clicked with what Sarah had learned was amusement. "Are those chemical strips?" "Just basic water testing," Sarah replied, dipping one of her strips into a nearby pool. The strip immediately turned a deep purple color that wasn't on any of her charts. "This water has some unusual properties." Dr. Vexara, the team's crystalline medic, produced a sleek scanner that immediately began analyzing the same pool. "My quantum analyzer shows standard H2O with elevated mineral content, nothing our purification systems cannot handle." Sarah frowned at her simple test strip. According to her basic chemistry knowledge, that color indicated something far more dangerous than elevated minerals. She pulled out a small tablet from her pack and dropped it into a sample of the water. The liquid immediately began to foam and change color. "What are you doing now?" Krelon's mandibles clicked faster. "Are you trying to poison the water?" "It's a purification tablet," Sarah explained. "Where I come from, we use these to make water safe to drink." The alien crew members exchanged glances, and Sarah caught the unmistakable sound of suppressed laughter. Zixtal's scale shifted to a lighter blue, which she knew indicated amusement. "Sarah," Captain Thorne said with forced politeness, "while we appreciate your traditional methods, I think our advanced purification systems are more than adequate for this mission." Engineer Krelon activated his molecular purifier, a device the size of a briefcase that immediately began humming with energy. This unit can break down contaminants at the atomic level and restructure water molecules for perfect purity, much more effective than dropping tablets into liquid. Sarah watched as the purifier processed a sample of the pool water. The machine's display showed green lights across all indicators, suggesting the water was safe. But her simple test strip still showed that ominous purple color. "The readings look good," she said carefully, "but I'm getting some unusual results with my basic tests." "That's because your equipment is centuries behind current technology," Dr. Vexara said, her crystalline form pulsing with soft light. "Chemical strips cannot detect molecular-level purity the way our scanners can." The team set up their base camp near the largest pool, which their scanners indicated had the purest water source. Sarah set up her own small area downwind from the others, quietly continuing her simple tests while the alien crew members deployed increasingly sophisticated equipment. As the day progressed, the alien technology painted an optimistic picture. Molecular purifiers hummed efficiently, quantum analyzers showed perfect purity readings, and atmospheric processors indicated ideal conditions. The team's Nexari geologist, Rombach, even declared the mineral content potentially valuable for industrial applications. Sarah, meanwhile, continued getting troubling results from her basic tests. Every water source on the planet showed that same deep purple color on her strips, and her purification tablets created violent foaming reactions that seemed to consume the tablets entirely. "Still playing with your chemistry set?" asked Veltar, the team's Aquarian navigator. His translucent, jellyfish-like form rippled with what Sarah recognized as condescension. "I'm just trying to understand what's in this water," Sarah replied, holding up another discolored test strip. "Understanding is achieved through sophisticated analysis, not primitive guesswork," Veltar replied. "Our equipment has detected no threats." As evening approached, the team gathered around their advanced water processing station. The molecular purifiers had produced several gallons of water that all their scanners declared perfectly safe. Captain Thorne raised a cup of the processed water in a toast. "To another successful Federation exploration mission," he announced. The alien crew members filled their cups and drank deeply. Sarah hesitated, her simple test strips still showing dangerous readings even after all the advanced processing. "Not joining us?" Krelon asked, his compound eyes fixed on her. "I think I'll stick with my emergency water supply for tonight," Sarah said, pulling out a bottle of earth water she'd brought for backup. "Suit yourself," Zixtal said, his scales shifting to a dismissive gray. "More of our perfectly purified water for the rest of us." As the alien crew members settled in for the night, Sarah sat alone at the edge of camp, continuing her simple tests. The purple color on her strip seemed to be getting darker, and her purification tablets were now dissolving completely within seconds of hitting the water. She pulled out a small notebook and began recording her observations by the light of a simple flashlight. While her teammates relied on holographic displays and quantum computers, Sarah still believed in the value of written records and basic observation. Something was very wrong with the water on Zerion 7, and her primitive Earth chemistry was detecting it while all the advanced alien technology missed it completely. She just hoped she'd figure out what it was before it became a problem. The crimson sun set behind the crystalline formations, and the planet's surface began to glow with an eerie phosphorescence. In the distance, the steaming pools seemed to pulse with their own inner light, beautiful and mysterious. Sarah made one final note in her logbook. "Water chemistry unlike anything in Earth databases. Recommend extreme caution." Then she sealed her notebook in a waterproof pouch and settled in for what she suspected would be a very long night. Desperation and discovery, Sarah woke to the sound of retching. The alien sunrise was still hours away, but the phosphorescent glow of Zerion 7's surface provided enough light to see several of her teammates hunched over, violently ill. Zixtal was the worst affected. His normally bright blue scales had turned a sickly gray-green, and his breathing was labored. Dr. Vexara knelt beside him, her crystalline form pulsing with urgent red light as she ran her medical scanners. "Severe mineral poisoning," she announced, her voice tight with concern. "But this is impossible. Our purifiers showed perfect readings." Captain Thorne, who had also consumed the processed water, was pale but still functional. "Run full diagnostics on all water processing equipment," he ordered Krelon. The Zenthari engineer's mandibles clicked frantically as he worked. "All systems show normal operation. Molecular purifiers are functioning at optimal levels. Quantum analyzers detect no contaminants." Sarah approached the group, her simple test kit in hand. "How many drank the processed water last night?" "All of us except you," Captain Thorne replied, suspicion creeping into his voice. "What did you know that we didn't?" "I didn't know anything specific," Sarah said honestly. "My basic tests just kept showing dangerous readings even after your purifiers processed the water." Dr. Vexara's form flickered with frustrated light. "Chemical strips are primitive technology. They cannot possibly detect threats that our quantum analyzers miss." Sarah knelt beside one of the processed water containers and dipped in a fresh test strip. It immediately turned the same deep purple color she'd been seeing since they landed. "What does that color indicate?" Captain Thorne asked, his voice weaker than before. Sarah consulted her simple chart. "High concentrations of metallic compounds, possibly reactive elements that could be toxic to most biological systems." Krelon scoffed, despite his obvious discomfort. Metallic compounds would be easily detected by our molecular analysis. Unless they're in a form your equipment isn't programmed to recognize, Sarah suggested. She pulled out one of her purification tablets and dropped it into the processed water. The reaction was immediate and violent, with foam erupting from the container. The tablets are reacting with something your purifiers aren't removing, she explained. Something that's making everyone sick. Rombach, the Nexari geologist, groaned from where he lay curled up near the shuttle. Impossible. Our scanners would detect any dangerous minerals. Sarah looked at the foaming water, her mind racing. What if it's not about what your scanners can detect, but about what they're programmed to consider dangerous? She pulled out her notebook and flipped to a page of observations she'd made the night before. I've been thinking about this planet's unique properties, the crystalline formations, the phosphorescence, the way the water steams even in cool air. Get to the point, Captain Thorne said, though his tone was less dismissive than before. What if this planet has mineral compounds that don't exist in your databases? Sarah asked. Your equipment is incredibly advanced, but it can only recognize threats it's been programmed to identify. Dr. Vexara's light shifted to a thoughtful blue. You're suggesting our technology is missing something because it's too sophisticated? I'm suggesting that sometimes simple chemistry can detect things that complex equipment might overlook, Sarah replied. Especially when dealing with completely unknown environments. Veltar, the Aquarian navigator, rippled weakly from his position near the shuttle. Even if that's true, what can we do? Our purification systems are all we have. Sarah looked at her small supply of purification tablets. These tablets are designed to work on a broad spectrum of contaminants. They're not sophisticated, but they're adaptable. She grabbed an empty container and filled it with raw water from the nearest pool. The test strip turned purple immediately, but she dropped in 2 tablets anyway. The foaming reaction was intense, but gradually the water began to clear. After several minutes, she tested the water again. The strip showed a much lighter color, though not completely clean. It's not perfect, she admitted, but it's safer than what you were drinking. Zixtal managed to lift his head. How can primitive tablets succeed where our molecular purifiers failed? Sarah helped him sit up. Because sometimes the simplest solution is the most flexible one. My tablets don't try to analyze and categorize every compound. They just neutralize whatever they encounter. She began treating larger quantities of water, with her remaining tablets rationing them carefully. The sick crew members watched with growing attention as she worked. This is fascinating, Dr. Vexara said, her form now pulsing with curiosity rather than distress. Your method is completely non-selective. It attacks all foreign compounds equally. Exactly, Sarah said. It's inefficient by your standards, but it works when you don't know what you're fighting. Krelon struggled to his feet, his compound eyes focusing on her work. Can you show me how these tablets function? Sarah explained the basic chemistry as she worked. The tablets contained broad-spectrum reactive compounds that would bind with most metallic elements and many organic toxins. It wasn't elegant, but it was effective. We need more of these tablets, Captain Thorne said. How many do you have? Sarah's heart sank. Maybe enough for 2 days if we're careful. I only brought them for emergencies. The team looked at each other with growing concern. They were supposed to remain on Zerion 7 for 2 weeks, gathering samples and conducting surveys. Their advanced technology was useless against an unknown threat, and their only solution was running out. Can we synthesize more? Rombach asked weakly. Sarah shook her head. Not with the equipment we have. These tablets are made with specific compounds that would need to be manufactured in a proper lab. The reality of their situation settled over the group. They were stranded on an alien world with contaminated water, failing technology, and a rapidly dwindling supply of the only thing keeping them alive. There has to be another solution, Dr. Vexara said, her crystalline form flickering with determination. Sarah looked at her notebook again, thinking about everything she'd learned about basic survival techniques on Earth. There might be, but it would require combining your advanced technology with some very old-fashioned methods. What do you mean? Captain Thorne asked. Sarah looked around at the alien landscape, her mind forming a plan. We can't make more tablets, but we might be able to build a larger version of what the tablets do. A filtration system that works on the same principles but uses resources we can find here. The alien crew members exchanged glances. Their sophisticated equipment had failed them, but perhaps their primitive human teammate had an answer they hadn't considered. Show us, Captain Thorne said simply. Sarah smiled despite their desperate situation. For the first time since landing on Zarian 7, she felt like a valued member of the team rather than a primitive curiosity. Unity through survival. The next morning brought new urgency to their situation. 2 more crew members had fallen seriously ill despite drinking Sarah's tablet-treated water, and her supply was now down to just 3 tablets. The realization that even her simple solution might not be enough sent a wave of panic through the group. Sarah sat cross-legged on the crystalline ground, her notebook open in front of her as she sketched diagrams and made calculations. Around her, the alien crew members watched with desperate attention as she worked. The tablets buy us time, but they're not a permanent solution, she explained, looking up at the concerned faces surrounding her. We need to think bigger. Krelon's mandibles clicked nervously. Our molecular purifiers still show optimal function, but they clearly cannot handle this planet's water chemistry. Sarah nodded. That's actually useful information. Your equipment works perfectly. It's just fighting the wrong battle. She turned to a fresh page in her notebook. What if we could combine your technology's precision with broader spectrum treatment? Dr. Vexara leaned closer, her crystalline form pulsing with interest. What do you propose? Sarah pointed to her sketch. A multi-stage filtration system. We use your equipment to remove the contaminants it can detect, then add additional stages to catch whatever it misses. Captain Thorne, though still pale and weak, managed to focus on her diagram. What kind of additional stages? Physical filtration, chemical treatment, and biological processing, Sarah explained. Methods that don't rely on pre-programmed databases of known threats. Rombach, the Nexari geologist, studied her sketches with professional interest. The mineral formations on this planet could provide natural filtration media. Some of these crystals have porous structures that could trap contaminants. Sarah's eyes lit up. Exactly. And we can create reactive surfaces using basic chemistry principles. She stood and walked to the nearest crystalline formation, examining its structure. The alien crystal was honeycombed with tiny chambers and passages, like a natural sponge made of stone. If we could harvest some of these formations and treat them with reactive compounds, they might work like giant versions of my tablets, she said. Veltar rippled with cautious optimism, but we don't have the compounds needed for such treatment. Sarah grinned. Actually, we do. Your shuttle's emergency supplies include basic maintenance chemicals. Some of those could be repurposed for water treatment. Krelon's expertise in engineering proved invaluable as they began planning the construction. We could modify our molecular purifiers to work as preprocessors, he suggested. Remove the larger contaminants first, then pass the water through your multi-stage system. Dr. Vexara ran medical scans on the sickest crew members. We have perhaps 48 hours before the poisoning becomes irreversible for some of our team. The urgency drove them into immediate action. Sarah directed the construction while the healthier crew members gathered materials. They harvested crystalline formations, dismantled non-essential equipment for parts, and began building something that looked like a combination of advanced technology and primitive ingenuity. This section processes the initial molecular filtration, Krelon explained as he worked, his appreciation for Sarah's methods now obvious. Your design allows for multiple processing stages without losing efficiency. Zixtal, despite his weakened condition, used his scientific knowledge to analyze the crystal formations. These structures will provide both physical and chemical filtration. The mineral composition should neutralize several classes of toxins. As they worked, Sarah noticed something remarkable happening. The crew members were no longer treating her methods as primitive curiosities. Instead, they were integrating human survival techniques with their own advanced knowledge, creating something neither could have achieved alone. The biological processing stage is brilliant, Dr. Vexara said, as she helped Sarah prepare bacterial cultures from the shuttle's biological samples, using natural microorganisms to break down organic contaminants. Sarah smiled as she worked. Sometimes the best technology is the one that's been tested by millions of years of evolution. By the second day, their improvised water treatment facility was operational. It was an unusual sight. Gleaming alien technology interfaced with rough, crystal formations and simple chemical processors, all working together in a complex dance of purification. The first batch of water emerged from their system clear and odorless. Sarah's test strip showed only faint coloration, not perfect but dramatically improved from the raw planetary water. Medical analysis shows acceptable contaminant levels, Dr. Vexara announced after running her scans. This water should be safe for consumption. Captain Thorne was the first to volunteer as a test subject, drinking a full cup of their processed water. The entire team watched anxiously as minutes passed. His color began to improve, and his breathing became easier. "It works," he said with obvious relief. "Sarah, you may have saved all our lives." But Sarah shook her head. "We saved our lives. This system only works because it combines all of our knowledge and capabilities." Over the following days, the crew members recovered their strength as they continued drinking the processed water. The multi-stage filtration system operated continuously, providing clean water for their extended mission on Zerion 7. Rombach made an interesting discovery while analyzing the crystal formations they'd harvested. These minerals have properties that could revolutionize water purification technology across the galaxy, but it took combining them with basic chemical principles to unlock their potential. "Your tablets were the key," Krelon told Sarah as they maintained the filtration system together. Not because they were advanced, but because they were adaptable. Sarah looked out across the alien landscape of Zerion 7, its crystalline formations now glowing in the crimson sunset. Sometimes the most important technology isn't the most sophisticated one. It's the one that works when everything else fails. Dr. Vexara pulsed with thoughtful light. "This experience has taught me something valuable about the limitations of advanced technology. We became so focused on sophisticated solutions that we forgot simpler approaches might be more robust." When their rescue shuttle arrived 2 weeks later, it found a healthy, productive crew that had not only survived but thrived on one of the most challenging worlds they'd ever encountered. Their water purification system had become a model of interspecies cooperation, combining the best of multiple civilizations. As they prepared to leave Zerion 7, Captain Thorne addressed the team. "This mission will be remembered not for its advanced technology, but for its demonstration that wisdom can come from unexpected sources." Sarah packed her simple test kit and notebook, now filled with detailed observations and designs that would influence water purification technology across the galaxy. As she boarded the shuttle, she reflected on how her primitive Earth methods had not only saved lives, but had also opened new possibilities for interspecies collaboration. The shuttle lifted off from Zerion 7's surface, carrying with it a crew that had learned the value of combining sophistication with simplicity, and the knowledge that sometimes the most powerful technology is the wisdom to adapt and work together. Sarah looked back at the glowing planet through the viewport, where their improvised filtration system still operated, ready to help any future visitors who might face the same challenges they had overcome together. The ripple effect. 6 months after their return from Zerion 7, Sarah Chen found herself standing before the Galactic Federation Council in the magnificent crystal amphitheater on Centauri Prime. The vast chamber hummed with translation devices as representatives from dozens of worlds listened to her presentation. Above her head, holographic displays showed detailed schematics of the hybrid filtration system they had built on the hostile planet. "The Miller-Chen Adaptive Filtration Protocol," announced Council Speaker Mordain, a dignified Altarian whose silver skin gleamed under the chamber's lights, "has been successfully tested on 17 different worlds with challenging water chemistry. The success rate is remarkable." Sarah still felt uncomfortable with the formal naming convention, but she had learned not to argue with bureaucracy. What mattered was that their improvised solution was saving lives across the galaxy. Captain Thorne, now promoted to Admiral and sitting in the front row, gave her an encouraging nod. Beside him sat the rest of her former teammates, each now serving as ambassadors for the new interspecies cooperation protocols that had emerged from their experience. Dr. Vexara stepped forward, her crystalline form pulsing with warm golden light. The most significant discovery was not the filtration method itself, she addressed the council, but the principle behind it. We learned that technological advancement without adaptability can become a weakness rather than a strength. Zixtal rose next, his scales now a healthy bright blue. Our molecular purifiers remain the most sophisticated water processing technology in the galaxy, he said. But we now understand that sophistication without flexibility leaves us vulnerable to unknown threats. Sarah watched as Krelon activated a holographic display showing their hybrid system in action. The human approach taught us that the most robust solutions often combine multiple simple methods rather than relying on single complex systems. The presentation continued with detailed technical data, but Sarah's mind wandered to the personal transformations that had occurred. Rombach had completely restructured his geological survey methods, now incorporating basic earth chemistry alongside advanced mineral analysis. Veltar had begun studying human navigation techniques, discovering that sometimes intuition and simple observation could supplement sophisticated sensors. The implications extend far beyond water purification, continued Dr. Vexara. We are now implementing adaptive protocols in life support systems, atmospheric processors, and emergency equipment across the Federation fleet. Council Speaker, Mordain raised a hand for attention. Engineer Chen, the Council wishes to hear your perspective on these developments. Sarah stepped forward, still amazed that her simple survival knowledge had led to this moment. Honored Council members, I think the most important lesson we learned is that wisdom doesn't belong to any single species or civilization. When we stopped competing and started collaborating, we created something stronger than any of us could achieve alone. She gestured to the holographic display showing water treatment facilities now operating on dozens of worlds. These systems work because they combine Xanthari engineering precision with Vorthan scientific analysis, crystalline medical knowledge with Nexari geological expertise, Aquarian fluid dynamics with human adaptability. No single approach would have been enough. The chamber erupted in a chorus of approval, translated into dozens of different sounds from clicking mandibles to harmonic tones to crystalline chimes. Sarah felt a warm sense of satisfaction, not for the recognition, but for the knowledge that their experience was helping others. After the formal session ended, Sarah found herself surrounded by the old crew from Zarian 7. They had become more than colleagues. They were friends who had survived something extraordinary together. I have news, Captain Thorne announced with a smile. The Federation is establishing a new training facility on Zarian 7. It will be called the Chen Institute for Adaptive Survival Technology. Sarah nearly choked on her drink. The what now? They insisted on naming it after you, Krelon said, his mandibles clicking with amusement. I suggested the primitive technology that actually works institute, but apparently that was too long. Dr. Vexara pulsed with laughter. The facility will train interspecies teams in crisis adaptation. Every Federation exploration crew will spend time there learning to combine their advanced technology with basic survival principles. And every team will carry emergency supplies of your water purification tablets, Zixtal added. They're now standard equipment on all long-range missions. Sarah shook her head in amazement. 6 months ago, you all thought those tablets were prehistoric junk. 6 months ago, we were idiots, Veltar replied, his translucent form rippling with embarrassment. We had confused complexity with competence. Rombach leaned forward conspiratorially. Want to know something interesting? I've been analyzing the mineral samples we brought back from Zarian 7. Those crystals we used in the filtration system have properties that our most advanced scanners still can't fully explain. What do you mean? Sarah asked. They seem to adapt their filtration characteristics based on the contaminants present, he explained. It's almost like they're alive, learning from each exposure and becoming more effective over time. Dr. Vex Ara's form brightened with excitement. That would explain why the system continued to improve its efficiency during our stay. We thought it was just optimization, but it might have been actual adaptation. So not only did we create a hybrid technological solution, Sarah mused, but we also discovered a form of living mineral that could revolutionize filtration technology. Exactly, Krelon said. And we only found it because we were forced to think outside our normal parameters. If our equipment had worked perfectly, we never would have explored alternative approaches. The conversation was interrupted by an announcement over the chamber's communication system. Engineer Chen, please report to Level 7 for urgent consultation. Sarah looked around at her friends with confusion. I'm not scheduled for any meetings. Go, Admiral Thorne said with a knowing smile. I think you'll find this interesting. Sarah made her way to Level 7, where she found herself in a conference room filled with the highest-ranking officials in the Federation. At the head of the table sat Supreme Coordinator Yexathara, whose four-armed frame commanded immediate respect. Engineer Chen, the coordinator began, we have a situation that requires your unique expertise. A holographic display activated, showing a distant star system. 3 days ago, we lost contact with a research station in the Kepler sector. Their last transmission indicated critical system failures affecting life support, water processing, and atmospheric controls. Sarah studied the display. What kind of research were they conducting? Experimental terraforming technology, replied Chief Science Advisor Nexaval. They were testing advanced atmospheric processors on a planet with highly reactive atmospheric chemistry. Let me guess, Sarah said with growing understanding. Their sophisticated equipment is failing because it can't adapt to unexpected environmental conditions. Precisely, Coordinator Yexathara confirmed. We need someone who can think beyond conventional solutions. Someone who can adapt and improvise when advanced technology fails. Sarah felt the familiar weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. What kind of support team would I have? Your choice, the coordinator replied. Any specialists you want? Any equipment you need? Sarah smiled, already knowing her answer. I want my crew from Zerion 7, all of them. Done, the coordinator said without hesitation. How soon can you depart? Give us 12 hours to prepare, Sarah replied, and make sure our ship has a full emergency kit of basic supplies. Sometimes the oldest solutions are the best ones. As she left the conference room, Sarah realized that her journey from mocked outsider to respected problem solver was just beginning. The galaxy was full of challenges that couldn't be solved by advanced technology alone, and she was becoming the person others turned to when conventional wisdom failed. Her communicator chimed with messages from her old crewmates, all confirming their eagerness to tackle this new challenge together. They had learned something precious on Zerion 7, that the combination of different perspectives, simple wisdom, and advanced knowledge could overcome obstacles that would defeat any single approach. Sarah looked out through the station's massive viewport at the stars beyond, each one representing worlds with their own unique challenges and opportunities. Somewhere out there, people were in trouble, and their salvation might come not from the most sophisticated technology, but from the simple human principles of adaptation, cooperation, and refusing to give up. She headed to the equipment bay to begin preparing for another mission, carrying with her the knowledge that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe is the willingness to think differently and work together. The galaxy was vast and full of surprises, but she was ready for whatever came next.